In chapter 5, Moses retells the Ten Commandments, the same ones God originally gave at Mount Sinai. But why repeat them? Because this is a new generation. Their parents had died in the wilderness, and Moses wanted to make sure they understood the covenant before entering the promised land. The commandments cover our relationship with God, like having no other gods and keeping the Sabbath, and our relationship with others, like honoring parents and not stealing. Jesus later summed these up in two simple principles: love God and love people. If we live by these, we fulfill God's law. Now we get to one of the most famous passages in the Bible, Deuteronomy 6:4-5, also known as the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. This was the centerpiece of Jewish faith, and it's still powerful today. Loving God isn't just about following rules. It's about giving Him our whole hearts. Moses also tells parents to teach God's commands to their children daily, when they wake up, when they walk, when they sit at home. This is a reminder that faith isn't just for Sundays, it's a lifestyle. Chapter 7 highlights God's faithfulness. Moses reminds Israel that they weren't chosen because they were powerful or special. It was because of God's love and the promise He made to their ancestors. Moses also warns them, don't compromise with the nations around you. Don't worship their gods or adopt their ways, because that will lead you away from the Lord. For us, this is a challenge to stay faithful. Are we following God's ways, or are we being influenced by things that pull us away from Him? This chapter is a big one. Moses warns the Israelites, when you enter the promised land and life gets good, don't forget the Lord. It's easy to rely on God when we're struggling, but what about when things are going well? Moses reminds them, it is God who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Deuteronomy 8:18. This is a powerful lesson for us today. Whether in seasons of plenty or struggle, we must always depend on God, not our own strength. In chapter 9, Moses reminds Israel that they aren't getting the promised land because they're righteous. It's because of God's grace and the wickedness of the nations before them. He reminds them of their biggest failure, the golden calf incident. Even after God rescued them from Egypt, they turned to idol worship. Moses is saying, don't be arrogant. Stay humble and recognize that every blessing comes from God's mercy, not our own goodness. Chapters 10 and 11 are all about commitment. Moses says, what does the Lord require of you? To fear Him, to walk in His ways, to love Him, and to serve Him with all your heart and soul. Deuteronomy 10:12. God isn't after robotic obedience. He wants our hearts. He wants us to love Him and walk in His ways because we trust Him. Moses also reminds Israel of blessings for obedience and curses for disobedience. This isn't about legalism, it's about life and death. Following God leads to life, while turning away from Him leads to destruction.